Hey guys, I thought I'd give you another of my 50 First Dates project summaries on one of the real fake dates I went on back many years ago. I was offering fellas real fake dates in exchange for me being able to get information and they would get honest feedback, which how often do you really get honest feedback? Not very often. The reason that you don't is often because one, women, they don't want to hurt your feelings, and two, sometimes men don't react very well to, critical feedback. So sometimes it's just easier to say, just wasn't there or wasn't feeling it. And you know what? Guys do this too. So let's not blame anybody. Everybody's doing the best they can from where they're at. Anyways, so when I did this first 50 First Dates project, I didn't manage to get through 50 dates, but I did manage to get through enough dates to find some patterns in the things that men were doing in their first dates that were really good, and maybe some other things that could use a bit of a tweak. So here's the feedback from these gentlemen who very graciously participated in my study. So this date number 2, let's see here, like 40s, kids, 2 kids, tween and teenage, work, executive management. So the first thing I noticed about this fella is that, and we're going to call him Slouchy Stargazer. And there's a reason for that. I'll tell you in a minute. But Slouchy Stargazer, what I liked about him right away was that he respected, I really don't like texting, instant messaging, any kind of digital form of communication. For me personally, I don't like. Now that's not normal. Most women really want to hear from you a lot. So again, don't judge or base what you're going to learn here today off of what my preference is. Okay, moving on. Anyways, I did tell him up front that I didn't like texting and I preferred to meet in person. And so he was definitely respectful of that. And I noted that, which can be translated into he heard me, he respected my needs, and they were obviously not in conflict with his own needs. Now, if you have here's a side note, if you have a different value system or a different needs system for how much communication you like to have, well, then you're going to need to know that up front, and find that out. So if someone like me says, I really don't like texting, and you really do, well then, there might need to be some compromise, or maybe you're just not a right match, and that's okay. Like, the sooner you know the things that are not compatible, the sooner you can move on to someone who is compatible. We went for dessert, and it was on a Saturday at 3 p.m., which is really great because it was a time when the restaurant wasn't busy, so we could hear each other very easily and not be distracted. So that's a good thing to note. He was on time. In fact, he was a little bit early, so that was good. That was respectful. You don't have to be super early, but be on time. I do not agree with some of the coaches who say arrive late to make her wait. I just think that's disrespectful, and you wouldn't want to be treated that way either. And he did sit with his back to the room. So I mentioned in my other video on my first 50 First Dates that the guy had sat with his back to the venue, which is good in a way because that gives me the view, so giving her the view, but also protecting yourself from tasty distractions like really hot waitresses or what have you, or if there's, TV monitors or things like that. But at the same time, it's sometimes you actually want to sit between her and potential danger. So as a man, you're probably going to feel vulnerable having your back to whatever potential danger is behind there, or not knowing what might be coming. Now, you're not consciously thinking of this, but it is in your subconscious. So it's just something to be aware of. It's ideal if you can be in a situation where you can actually protect her from danger, but also not be distracted by distractions. We shook hands because I think he felt like this was more of a business transaction because he knew what I did for a living. Now, if you are a hugger, even in today's day and age with what's happening, you can ask her, normally I'm a hugger, but, if you don't feel comfortable with that, then we can hug later or whatever. Or you can not shake hands, like no touching if you don't feel like she's going to be safe. So just ask. This is a great time in dating history because you really have to ask permission to have physical contact and actually even be in someone's bubble. Everybody's going to have different ideas about what makes them feel safe. Some people are completely not worried about what's happening at all, and other people are super paranoid, or they have vulnerable family members or close loved ones or work that they have to be very cautious of. So you just need to gauge where you're at and where they're at, and hopefully you are in alignment on that. Not just now, like not just at the beginning of the date, but it's a good time to test to see if your value systems are in alignment with what you believe about, even what's happening in the world right now and your choices. Oh yeah, so this was when I was buying my condo. So I put my phone on the table and I said that I was sorry that I was waiting up for a call back from my banker because I was waiting to get approved for a mortgage, I think. Anyways, so normally I would say always put your phone away. Don't just put it away, but turn it off. Like turn it off unless you have an urgent message you're waiting for. And if you do, then definitely let your date know that that's why you're going to be checking your phone. Women, I think, are far worse at this. Like they check their phone far too frequently. It's really rude. Ladies, if you're watching this, put your phone away. You can be without your phone for an hour or two, unless there's something urgent that you need to be, aware of, ready for, unless you need your phone on for an emergency. Emergencies only though. We shared stories and a cheese, no cheesy stories. Okay, this is why he's slouchy stargazer. So he did gaze off heavenward quite a bit. So he had a difficult time making and holding eye contact. Now, some of us, I'm like this, tend to, when I'm telling a story or recalling something, my eyeballs are all over the place. And then when I'm listening, I'm trying to actually, look at the person and make eye contact. And he seemed to be the same way. So if you tend to be that way, you might want to try to reel it in a bit so that you are actually looking at the person more so, because the more eye contact you have, the more engaged you are, but you don't want to be staring them down because then that feels a little intimidating and intrusive. So the rule of thumb is always 80-20. So you want to be making eye contact about 80% of the time and then glancing about or looking into your memory banks for about 20% of the time. And then the slouchy part, well, yes, he was slouching. So slouching is not a good thing because it comes across as being either depressed or spending too much time on the computer or lazy or uninterested. So there's a whole bunch of assumptions that people make about body language. So just make sure that you're sitting up straight, and that shows confidence, that shows that, good posture shows health, it shows interest. And same with eye contact. Eye contact shows interest. So just kind of keep that in mind. He asked me how I became a dating coach. I explained that. We talked about his divorce a little bit. Oh, okay, his upcoming divorce. So I found out that he was actually only a few months out of marriage and not quite divorced. And in fact, later discovered that he wasn't even legally separated at that time. So that's one of the things you're going to find on dating sites, that people, men and women, both go on there when they're newly single and probably shouldn't be on there yet. But they're wanting to see what's available in the marketplace. And sometimes, they are ready and they will find the right person and they live happily ever after. But a lot of times when you're fresh out of a relationship, whether it's the man or the woman, there's going to be a lot of healing that needs to happen. And the rebound person is often not the final selection. And there's a good chance, again, I'm going to go with the 80-20 rule. There's like 80% chance it's not going to work out because they're just not ready, but they want to be. I called him fresh meat. We both laughed. And then later he texted me and he asked for feedback on how he did on attractiveness, first impression, and personality. And I sent him a full report on that. Written and everything, all professional. Takeaways. Don't be afraid to ask for her preference with regard to communication. Respecting a woman's communication needs means knowing what they are. Also, respect your own communication needs. So don't just give her what she wants and at the sacrifice of yourself. If that's not going to be something that's okay with you, then you actually do need to speak up and say, well, actually, I do prefer to get to know you a little bit more by text before we meet, or, have a phone call or FaceTime or whatever. And, if she's not amenable to that or, compromising at all, well, that says something about her and it ain't good for you. 2, know that dating sites are the first place single people who are back on the market go to get back into dating. So understanding this means asking the right questions before you meet, unless you're up for fresh meat. 3, be honest about your relationship status. It's not necessarily going to be a turnoff for everyone. There might be somebody else out there who's fresh out of a relationship and knows where they're at and wouldn't mind being with someone else fresh out of a relationship because you understand where they're at. Never try to deceive, for sure. Never try to deceive. 4, forge your own path without oversharing. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So especially when you've just been through a breakup and now you're dating somebody new, or you're potentially going to date someone new, do not overshare on your past relationship, because that just says you're not over it yet and you're not emotionally available. And always offer to walk or drive your date home, even though most of the time right now, if she doesn't know you at all, she's going to say no, because women's safety is her primary concern, of course. And if you want to have the best chance of dating or online dating, because I met these guys all online, then you definitely want to check out my Double Your Online Dating program. It's only $10 for a limited time. I might change my mind on that. And it also gives you first date ideas. It gives you communication ideas, second date ideas, and there's a couple other bonuses in there that are worth the money, never mind the actual program. So, and actually, no, that's it. Yeah, check out that program. You'll like it. You'll like it. It's worth it. Even if you don't want to do online dating, there's good ideas in there that are worth it.